Hi, hello, and welcome or welcome back, I suppose. Now, I'm not doing a huge intro ramble today. I know that I am a little late to this book, to reviewing it, so I know that many of you will know what to expect going into this or have some idea, but I still think it's right to start this review giving a content warning about both review and book. Not every content warning that I have here will be explicitly explored within this review, but it is stuff that features in the book. There may be more that I have missed, but these were the major points that I noticed that may have an effect on your well-being. So the content warnings we have are domestic abuse, eating disorders, sexual harassment, and inappropriate adult-child behaviour. That's mostly referring to her time at Nickelodeon. And I do absolutely understand if any of those topics make it difficult or impossible for you to watch this video or read the book. There are other books out there and there are other videos on this channel that will be coming and that have been before that do not feature these topics. So if you can't watch this review, or seeing that means that you know that you won't be able to read the book, that's absolutely understandable. With all that being said, today we're talking about I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jennette McCurdy. And we open the book in a way that just perfectly sets up what to expect going forward. We start out later in Jennette's life where she's in hospital, sitting with her mother who's in the final stages of her life. Her mother's comatose. Her brothers and her, as in Jennette's brothers and her, are all sharing big news as a kind of hope to wake their mother up. The brothers are talking about moving, getting married, those sorts of things, and Jennette says that she has reached the dangerously low goal weight that her mother has set for her, because in her mind, if that isn't going to be something that wakes her up, then nothing will. And in that first passage, we immediately see what we are to expect for the rest of the book. The tone and expectations are firmly set and we know what's what going forward. The rest of the book is in chronological order, starting from Jennette's early childhood through to present day. Now, in the early days, her mother's behaviour is closer to warning signs than something more overtly serious, but as the book continues, it grows more sinister and more overt that it is abuse. And a lot of that is down to the way that Jennette decided to basically have each section sound as if it is coming from her at the age of it sounds like it's coming from her voice at whatever age she is at any given point in the book. So if she is talking about a moment from when she's 6, there is a tone to that voice, that narrative voice, that gives the impression, yes, a child is talking here. And it's an incredibly effective method, because there is nobody that is able to tell the truth without intentionally telling the truth than a child, and her using a child's voice. It sounds like it's somebody else's, it's her voice, but using that child voice makes it so effective, because children just say what's happening to them, even if it's not a case of actively going, I don't like this thing that's happening, it's bad. But they'll just say what happens in their life, and she really manages to capture that way. she almost occasionally feels defensive of her mother, but the child version of her, I mean, is that like accidentally defensive of her mother, just saying, oh, mum does this, but it's okay because I love her, kind of thing. Or, I don't know that I really want to do this, but it means that mum's going to be happy, and I don't like it when she's stressed out. I didn't get exact quotes from this because it was hard to pinpoint an exact moment where I started really picking up on the way she was doing it, but it's an incredibly effective method. I thought it was just brilliant. You know, given the fact that she was in her adulthood by the time that she even realised that her mother's behaviour was abuse, it explains so much. We see her reacting to basically being told that what she's been through is abuse from her therapist. Her therapist explains this to her, and she flips. It's like, it's not abuse, it's complete denial from the outset, and she gets angry, so angry, because frankly, especially in situations where there's something on my leg, especially in situations where there's nothing physical in terms of aggressively physical, so something like hitting, or there's nothing overtly sexual. Now, she's talked about this when she's done interviews, and it's within the book itself. I've not gone too much detail into it because it's something that feels very, very uncomfortable for me to talk about. It's not something that reflects something I've been through, but just it leaves me very uncomfortable to talk about, so I won't delve into it much. But while not overtly sexual in, say, there's an intention there, you know, she is being showered by her mother up until her late teens. I believe she was 16 when that stopped, and she's also being checked for, I mean, I imagine that is what her mother thinks she's doing. She's checking her chest, she's checking her genitals for cancer because her mother was a cancer survivor. That's her sort of reasoning behind it, but obviously that is not okay to do, especially because this child is not saying that's okay to do, but they would think it's fine because it's what they've grown up with. So when I say there's nothing overtly sexual happening with her mother, I mean that the intention is not that. So there's nothing overtly physical going on outside of what I've just mentioned. It is just, it's so much emotional manipulation and abuse. Therefore, it can be really hard to notice, especially when it's your parent, your guardian, whatever. But if it's your parent, you just think that's normal. You're being raised that way, so you're just going to assume either that's how everybody else lives, or even if you kind of know that it isn't, you just know that, well, everybody's different and that's normal for us. So it's really understandable that the way that Jennette responds later in life with her therapist is how she responded, and that really struck me. You know, this is a book where we see her buffeted around different toxic environments. There's her home life, which is the sort of epicenter of everything. There's her being a child star, you know, a sort of profession with a noted monstrous history. And then she's just in Hollywood even as she is an adult, which is, of course, a monstrous industry for many people. And then consider the fact that this isn't all separate places for her. She is constantly, like, these environments are constantly intertwined. The part was emotionally draining, but after Mom said I could buy Microsoft Word and The Sims with the part of my paycheck she wasn't using for bills, it was worth it. Like, this is not uncommon within child stars at all, of any variety, but it's something that in particular gets under my skin with the sort of child star industry, that they are the ones that are burdened with bills. No child should be burdened with bills at all. Like, if you are an adult living with your parents, paying part of the bills is fine, because you're sort of old enough to have a grasp of what the stress of money can entail. But that stress should not be put on a child at any time. And every time I read about anything like that, it just gets under my skin so bad. Like, no child should have to deal with this. And yet, within the sort of child star industry, it's just so fucking common. And just one of the most nagging, I would say, parts of Jennette's story is that it's really clear that she never wanted this from the start. It isn't a case of, you know, because this sometimes happens, this isn't a case of a little kid going, I want to be an actor, and they have a kind of overactive, overambitious parent that pushes them to do it, but then as they get a bit older, they don't want to do it anymore, but the parent's like, you're in it now, keep going. This is just a case of a mother going, live my dreams for me, you are doing this. And there are constant doubts from Jennette throughout her life. And then we see her, age 11, trying to tell her mum, I don't want to do this anymore. And her mum, for want of a better phrase, or for want of a better word rather, becomes hysterical. I try not to use that word in general, especially when I am talking about women, but it is, I would say, an accurate word to use for her. She begins screaming and she's like, I can't believe you do this to me. And as soon as Jennette backs down and goes, okay, I'll carry on doing it, I'm sorry, I won't mention it again, it's fine. And I just don't understand the idea that you would see your child going, I don't want to do something anymore, and just go, well, I want it, so that's your problem. It's just like, oh. And not long before that, we see her in a waiting room, waiting for an audition, and she sat there just feeling like she is unable to do what she has to do. She doesn't want to embody this character, and she doesn't want to have to cry on cue. She doesn't feel like she can do it, and crying on cue, crying on command, that's her sort of special skill as an actor. And unsurprisingly, especially for child roles, that's something that is particularly sought after. A part of me is saying, no, it's too painful, I'm not doing this. That part of me is foolish. That part of me doesn't realise this is my special skill, that this is good for me, for my family, for mum. The part of me that doesn't want to cry on cue is not convinced. That part of me screams that I'm not Emily, which is the character she's auditioning for, that I'm Jennette, and that I, Jennette, deserve to be listened to. What I want and what I need deserves to be listened to. She knows. She is a child here. She is about 11. I'm not sure if that was... I didn't mark down which chapter that's in, so I don't know if that's... You know, she's maybe 9 or 10 at the youngest there, but she is somewhere between, let's say, she's like 10 or 11 here. And she knows. She deserves to be listened to. She deserves to not be able to do things like this. But, deep down, she knows that no matter what, she's gonna have to keep doing it. Because that's what her mum wants. It's not what she wants at any point, but it's what her mum wants, so she's got to keep her happy. Now, personally, I did find the caloric restriction and eating disorder discussion, which does hold a large part of this book, especially when she's talking about later on in her life, where it starts to just take over her life. And I found all of that discussion particularly difficult to read. Whenever she was discussing it, I often had to take breathers. It's the fact that it started and then encouraged by her mother, and then, whether unintentionally or intentionally, because of the effect it's had on her body once she's in Hollywood, it's positively encouraged. I take to caloric restriction really quickly, and I'm quite good at it. By the way, she's a small child here. I believe she's about 12 or 13, and the reason that she's started with this, that her mother's enforcing the starting it, is because she's started growing a chest, and her mother wants her to make sure she can hold puberty off for as long as possible, because if you look really young, you can get roles for longer as a child. Yeah. I take to caloric restriction really quickly, and I'm quite good at it. I'm desperate to impress Mom. She's a great teacher because she's been caloric restricting for so long, she tells me. I mean, that just breaks your heart, doesn't it? And then we see this when she's an adult. I'm abusing my body every day. I'm miserable. I'm depleted, and yet the compliments keep pouring in. She is encouraged to do this from every environment that she's finding herself in until she finds a way to get help. Hello, Lily. She's watching outside. That's nice. No, you can't come and sit on here. But I'm going to imagine that anybody sort of my age will know Jennette from her role in iCarly and possibly Sam and Cat later on. But it's really clear that she really is just being bandied about different abusive situations. You know, we have these two programs being run by Dan Schneider. Now, I don't have the time to discuss what kind of man he is, but there are plenty of videos out there. I believe Cruel World Happy Mind has done a video on him, and I always find her explanations of sort of people and the way they behave brilliantly. If she hasn't, then I would imagine that Swoop has. There are plenty of people out there that have spoken about him though, but basically know that he was an abusive creep, allegedly. Now, for legal purposes, she never mentions him by name, or at least I'd imagine it's legal purposes. She never mentions him by name. He is always referred to as the creator. This is how conversations with the creator usually start. He'll heap the compliments on while undercutting other talent that he works with, which is Groomer 101. It's that kind of, you're special because you're different to all of your other friends, and you're different because you are better than them. You're better, they're garbage, you're so good, you're brilliant, they're nothing compared to you. And they use that sort of mentality in order to alienate you from your group, in order to endear you to them. And it's something that especially works in people who are generally vulnerable. So obviously you're going to take someone like Jennette, who's, even though she's not aware she's been in an abusive situation so far, she is still going to be vulnerable to that sort of praise, for want of a, and those sort of tactics. But just in general, teenagers are often really susceptible to that sort of tactic, because bear in mind, there's a lot of self-esteem issues that do occur when you're going through your teen years. Obviously not everybody deals with that, but many people do. I feel like the creator has two distinct sides. One is generous and over-the-top complimentary. He can make anyone feel like the most important person in the world. The other side is mean-spirited, controlling, and terrifying. The creator can tear you down and humiliate you. And that is the two sides of the person being described, because you can be on either side of the tactics of somebody who, you know, that kind of, you're special because you're better than everybody else, but you could be on either side of that. You could be the special one who's better than everybody else. No, you're great, you're the best, you're nothing there, nothing compared to you. Or you can be the nothing compared to somebody that they do like. That's it. They're the two sides. I found this book, unsurprisingly, incredibly difficult to read, and I think it's just phenomenal the way that Jennette has told her story, and it is heartbreaking at every single moment. Yet she keeps a level of lightness that I haven't really mentioned through the review, but she is incredibly funny. And I think incredibly funny, especially if you're somebody else who, if you can read this and you are somebody who's been through trauma, I think you will really like this. Now, obviously, if it's the sort of thing that you find triggering, then that might not be a good idea. But if you're somebody who is in a place where you can understand the risks but are willing to accept it, or if you're somebody who generally, you know, you've dealt with trauma but isn't necessarily triggered easily, and I don't mean triggered in the internet way, I mean it in the actual bloody way, then I do think it is really funny in that regard. Like, if you're somebody who has other, you know, like, I'll be the first to say there's some trauma in my brain, and there's a particular way you talk to the friends of yours that have also been through some shit, and she often does talk like that, and it feels funny when you're sort of, it's very dry. Now, we have a busy upcoming week. So, this coming Thursday, we have Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Then, on Saturday and Sunday, we have something a little bit different. Then, on Saturday and Sunday, I am welcoming you in to come and co-tidy with me. I have finished tidying my room. I've filmed that. I'm going to be editing that today. And I'm going to be editing the first part. We're going to have part 1 on Saturday, part 2 on Sunday, because I did it over 2 days, so I figured that might help you. It's basically a way to, for especially a lot of neurodivergent people, we like to co-activity. So, you know, co-studying and all that sort of stuff. I may have more co-activities in the future, but this weekend we have 2 videos coming up for a tidy session. It's nothing special. It's not a neat little show you shuffling a little desk around. I bottomed this room. It's not completely finished, but like I mentioned at the latter part of that video, it's little bits of things that for me just aren't really worth filming. You have enough footage to be able to co-tidy. It's not like you're going to be doing exactly the same things as I am. Then next Tuesday we have Inuyasha by Rumiko Takahashi, and finally next Thursday we have Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. So make sure that you are all subscribed up and make sure you have the little notification bell on, because without that you won't know when stuff is coming. Also, feel free to follow me on Twitter. That is where I post, I post all sorts of stuff on there. It's mostly me liking wrestling stuff, but I do also post all my video updates on there. That'll be in the description. And feel free to leave a little like if you want. And comment down below. 1, if you've read this book, let me know how you've been feeling with it, because I will be interested to know that. And if there are any books out there, be it fiction, non-fiction, poetry, even a play if you feel like it, if there's anything out there that you would like me to check over and review for you, do let me know in the comments, and I'll be sure to check it out at some point, because I'm planned up. I am moving into April now of where my plans are seeing me. So I'm trying to do more videos a week just because it means that I'm trying to get more done. I might be taking some of the shorter fiction off, well, not off my shelf, when I'm reading them, but out of, I've got my little tin with all the names of the books on my shelf. I might be taking a couple out of there. So I've got a couple of shorter comic volumes. I've got some short fiction and poetry collections and stuff. I am thinking of taking those and scattering them throughout the rest of the week, not just on Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's if I'm able, because my weeks are kind of fucking busy. But we'll see what happens. But for now, have a wonderful day, have a wonderful night, have a wonderful whenever you are watching this. Take good care of yourselves. Right.